Warning. Warning. You are entering a territory far from your safe space. You must turn back now, or you will become informed. Go. Now.
Minneapolis and St. Paul are under the leadership of two new mayors. Jacob Frey and Melvin Carter both took the oath of office today. Frey spent the last 4 years on the Minneapolis City Council. Carter, who is also a former city council member, is now the city's first African-American mayor. And Esme Murphy has more on the start of their tenures. We saw a lot of passion from Melvin Carter in his speech today, Esme.
Absolutely, Liz. The word that comes to mind is fiery, and the more than 1,000 cheering supporters who came out to see him sworn in loved it. Now, the swearing in had more of a feel of a campaign rally and took place at St. Paul Central High School, which Mayor Carter graduated from just 20 years ago, and where he was voted back then most likely to succeed.
I, Melvin Carter III.
The 38-year-old was sworn in on a family Bible surrounded by his wife and their 5 children.
So help me God.
Oh, nigga, you gay! The speech was part tribute to his own family's rise.
My love for St. Paul goes back 100 years to when my great-grandparents fled here from the hatred and violence of the Deep South.
And a call to action.
St. Paul is a city with momentum, but we are also a city of deep inequity.
He blasted a national culture ingrained in racism, citing the little-used third stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Our national anthem, our national freedom song, is an ode to slavery.
He said his immediate priorities include a review with St. Paul Police of their deadly force policy, as well as raising the city's minimum wage to $15 an hour. Another initiative is for St. Paul's youngest.
I will propose a partnership between business, philanthropy, and nonprofit leaders to start every child born in St. Paul with $50 in a college savings account.
The mayor repeatedly noted he was back at his old high school.
Is Central in the house?
Saying he could never have imagined this moment.
As we decided where to put this celebration, it became really clear really early that this was the only place to do it.
With CPS's billion-dollar deficit, put that in quotes, they can and will eliminate more teaching positions and other jobs. And who will be impacted the most? Teachers of color, teachers of color, teachers of color.
That's racist!
Tenured teachers and older, more highly educated employees. And where will this impact be felt the most? In predominantly African-American communities.
What's wrong with you, black women?
And when are we going to ever address the element in the room, the big elephant in the room?
That's a huge bitch.
When will there be an honest conversation about poverty and racism and inequality that hinders the delivery of an education product in our school system? When will we address the fact that rich white people think they know what's in the best interest of children of African American and Latinos, no matter what the parents' income or education level? And when did all these venture capitalists become so interested in the lives of minority students in the first place?
When we learned how often they become thugs and criminals, and when we see how poorly they are raised.
There's something about these folks who love the kids but hate their parents. There's something about these folks who use little black and brown children as stage props at one press conference while announcing they want to fire, lay off, or lock up their parents at another press conference. If you look at the majority of the tax base for property taxes in Chicago, they're mostly white, who don't have a real interest in paying for the education of poor black and brown children.
Aren't you the ones boycotting white-owned business? Then do it yourselves.
We don't want to say that out loud, but if you go in certain communities, and before I had locks and people didn't exactly know who I was, I heard this stuff on a regular basis. And the conversations are they don't want to pay.
Boycott racism and hate by boycotting the Confederate 901 rally and caravan. Let's not give Confederate 901 or groups like that who believe what they do our time or energy.
And Mike, just to be clear, this Kings team is part of a rec league and is not affiliated with the Kings local school district. However, they did play home games here, and many of the players on the team are Kings high school students. Now, the name of the team is a sexual reference that we won't be repeating here on WLWT. The team in white clearly marked West Claremont. The boys in blue, well, we won't be repeating their team name. A sexual innuendo was printed across the front of their shirts, as parents of the opposing team saw for themselves yesterday.
It's more of a joke to them than anything else.
Printed on the back of the shirts, instead of player names, was something that stirred even more anger at West Claremont yesterday. Words that some considered racist.
It's not so much about even if we had black students, like, or African-American students or any minorities, like our kids were offended. Like,
Tony Rue immediately brought West Claremont's concerns to the league rep's attention.
I think he called people above him, and about midway through the second quarter, he came and got the ref's attention and told him the game was over. It was called that we weren't going to be a part of it.
Game over and season over for the Kings team. Cincinnati Premier Youth Basketball League said in a written statement today, the actions and conduct of the team did not comply with our stated mission and expected standards, and that team has therefore been dismissed from our league. Kings was 4 games into the season, which leaves opponents scratching their heads.
And these jerseys went from a design to a print to paid to worn, and then laughed about for the hours after. How did it get this far? I don't know that answer. How did it get that far?
Now, the coach, Walt Gill, initially told me on the phone that this whole thing was getting blown out of proportion, but later this afternoon he released the following statement saying, "We sincerely apologize to anyone that was offended by the jerseys. We offered to cover them up or change, however the league saw fit to remove us, and we have accepted that decision." Now, I should mention, the gentleman I spoke with talked about it be a joking manner. There is a teenager that keeps going by holding up the name of the team, laughing, but the Kings School District did say it condemns any type of hateful or racist commentary. Reporting live in Kings Mills, Karen Johnson, WLWT.
Sharice Middleton is the Kings Division Coordinator, and she released a statement saying Kings rec basketball for grades 7-12 does not in any way support or condone the uniform infractions that occurred. We strictly follow and support the rules set out by Cincinnati Premier Youth Basketball League and fully support their decision to remove the team from play as well. F that. This is more than a uniform infraction. This is racism. What do you mean uniform infraction? Not tucking in your jersey is a uniform infraction. Having a logo on your jersey you're not supposed to have is a uniform infraction. This is racism in its purest form. Then the coach of the team puts out that apology. We sincerely apologize to anyone that was offended by the jerseys. We offered to cover them up or change, however the league saw fit to remove us, and we have accepted that decision. Dear Coach Walt Gill, shut the F up forever. All right, they ain't covering up or changing, Vic. You mean to tell me when your kids came to you with this idea, you didn't tell them? Hell no. You mean to tell me that you didn't think a group of young white kids going out there with Negro on the back of their jersey and Coon on the back of their jersey, you thought that wasn't going to offend someone? See, Queen Michelle Obama said when they go low, we go high, but Charlemagne the God says when they go low, take it to the floor with them. And this is exactly why I will never stop calling white devils white devils. Okay? All white people aren't the devil, but the ones in these jerseys are young white devils too. See, when they display racism like this at a young age, I call them cracker-ass crackers in training.
That's racist!
All right, this is bigotry under construction, ladies and gentlemen, but this can be reversed. Oh, they can absolutely unlearn whatever they were being taught at home. All it takes is one away game in a predominantly black district in Cincinnati. I guarantee that Jamal and them who play for the undefeated Cincinnati Cracker Crushers have not played the Wet Dream Team. Okay, I want to start a league in Cincinnati right now. Red, black, and green are the colors. Name of the team is the Triple C Cincinnati Cracker Crushers, and we're not even going to go low and have racial slurs on the back of our jerseys. We're going to have names like Mohammed, Zulu, X, Tamin, Obama.
Oh, nigga, you gay.
All the names that strike fear in you racist bigots. And the white dream team better have that same energy and come in there with racial slurs on the back of their jerseys to play my guys. Oh, my bad, to play my guys.
Outrage over a video taken at a junior high school house party showing kids appearing to chant the N-word.
The school says they were just singing along to a popular rap song, but not everyone is seeing it that way. And it's causing quite the debate on campus.
Team 12's Ryan Cody spent the day there and joins us now with some pretty heated reaction. Ryan?
After school, several students here telling us that the teenagers in that video are 8th graders here at Santan Junior High, and that racially charged post is what everyone was talking about as they came back from the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. It's so bad we can barely put this post on TV, but the video is dominating discussion at Santan Junior High. The district is condemning the actions of these students caught repeatedly shouting a racial expression on social media, saying in a statement the video is, quote, creating conversation of concern in our community, and in some cases, backlash to the individuals who are associated with the incident. Also saying the teenagers were reciting a rap song by Rod Digga and Young Z.
I'm pissed off.
Jeffrey Mobison is angry because his daughter goes to the school.
What does it mean about the student body? What does it mean about kids that, you know, she never had an inkling could believe in these kind of things or say these kind of things?
But his real anger is mostly about the response, which he says is an attempt to rationalize the actions with a popular rap song. But after a quick YouTube search, we're finding those students might not have been singing that song at all, rather a different one by a well-known white supremacist.
Fuck all those niggers, man. Martin Luther King deserves to be killed. Fucking nigger. This fuck those apart of shit, man. Fuck those niggers, man. Fuck all niggers. Fuck all niggers.
The song. That. The you just Chandler school system telling you that was some other song. That's the song.
A fuck nigga. I swear to God I cannot stand a fuck nigga. That boy plotting up on my juicy is a fuck nigga.
It took me 10 seconds with Google and YouTube to find that this is the song.
All niggers, fuck all
We sent the
niggers,
district a link to that white supremacist song, which, by the way, has over 73,000 views on YouTube, and we're told the situation is now under review. In Chandler, Ryan Cody, 12 News.
A fuck nigga. I swear to God I cannot stand a fuck nigga. That boy plotting up on my juicy is a fuck nigga. They told me stop saying nigga, you is a dumb nigga.
But I don't say what up, y'all niggas, cause I don't really trust y'all niggas. I'm feeling like fuck y'all niggas. Fuck y'all niggas. I ain't fuck y'all niggas. Fuck y'all niggas. Fuck y'all niggas. With no rubber, big long dick has been a long ass struggle after all that hustling.
Shame on the nigga who tried to run game on a nigga who's buck wild with the trigger. Shame on the nigga who tried to run game on a nigga who's bucks our fuck ass up. Yo, hot one, hot two, hot three.
Fuck y'all niggas. I knew from the gate not to trust y'all niggas. You act like I won't break and bust y'all niggas. You wanna be tough, y'all niggas? I had about enough of y'all niggas. Fuck y'all niggas out, murder y'all niggas, body y'all niggas, clap y'all niggas,
Superstar J.
Niggas out, cut y'all niggas, fuck y'all niggas, touch y'all niggas.
Bring it back.
I don't fuck with y'all niggas.
I don't fuck with y'all niggas. Cause y'all niggas just like me. Nothing is all just business. I don't ever really take shit personally. I don't take it personally. I got Latino niggas and I got my black niggas. Don't matter your skin color, white or black, you get this bullet.
A Georgia town divided by race and its mayor now demanding changes.
Hey Stan, it's raining outside. Would you prefer that we don't talk about that either? I mean, come on, Stan. That's what people are talking about around the dinner table, in a lot of homes, in the diners. Race is something that it's okay.
And I think there are a lot of people who will look at this conversation tonight and say there are some people who are, you know, the wailing and gnashing of teeth at the idea that Atlanta may have a white mayor, and they would say, if you had this conversation on the other side of it, and people were saying, oh, what if we end up with a black mayor? That would be considered a racist conversation. So I think we're hearing from a lot of people who feel that way too.
Two different things.
I don't think they're two different things at all. It's exactly the same thing.
Because from the beginning of time, you have had more, well, in America.
Okay,
in our
in
time.
America. No, that's not the beginning of time.
Okay. Well, come on. Let's talk about that. Let me finish, okay? Since the beginning of America, we have deep-seated roots in slavery and segregation and Jim Crow and everything else, so it's really not the same thing. It's okay for black people to celebrate that culture.
And it's
And
okay.
be proud of it.
Yes,
and that's not
but
the
it's,
same.
and it's not okay
It's
for
not
white
the
people
same.
to celebrate?
It's not the same conversation. That's a pivot right there.
And I think that,
Not the
no,
same
I think that's why
conversation.
people
You said it was
think
racist.
on one end it's racist and on the other end it's
He's
not.
doing us a hard rap because
He
this
is.
could go on
It could.
It goes
It
on
could.
behind the scenes.
One by name of Kathy Ray emailed me. We're going to put that email on the screen, and then I'll comment after it. But I think it's fair for people to see what she wrote and get my response. I'll leave it at that. You need to be fired for the race-baiting comment you made tonight. It's okay for blacks to discuss certain subjects, but not whites. And then it goes on. Let's pull up the rest of it. Okay, so really, you are what I call a, now she tried to write the N-word, but she spelled it. I wish we would just put it on the screen. It's after 9 o'clock at night. People have the right to see it. She wrote N-I-G-E-R, not a black person. You are a racist, N-I-G-E-R. You are what's wrong with the world. And so I would say to Kathy a couple of things. Number one, you mischaracterized what I said.
It's not the same conversation. It's not the same conversation. It's not the same conversation.
I didn't say that white people couldn't talk about race. Quite the contrary. We think that race is an authentic discussion to have. It's one we're having tonight because it's one many of you are talking about at home. And it's one that has clearly entered the Atlanta mayor's race. And that's why behind the scenes, my colleagues and I, white and black, we decided, hey, let's go for it, right? Because we do try to keep it real here. And I think we do a very good job of it.
It's not the same conversation.
So I think when arguing with somebody, you have to be careful not to mischaracterize their viewpoint.
It's not the same conversation.
I won't mischaracterize your view either, Kathy Ray. I get it. On December 5th, 2017, you think it's okay to call this journalist a
Nigga, please.
I don't. But I could clap back
Don't let
and
me
say a
get
few
the
things
clapping,
to you.
boo.
But instead, I'll let your words, Kathy Ray, speak for themselves. And
What's wrong with you, black women?
Demanding changes. 5,000 people live in the town of Camilla. It's in the southwest portion of the state of Georgia. 70% of them are black. CBS 46 reporter Brittany Miller traveled to Camilla today, where the city's mayor is working to root out decades of institutional racism.
We're looking for all the city personnel.
When the mayor of Camilla, Georgia, and attorney Benjamin Crump came face to face with city manager Bennett Adams, there was an immediate demand for answers.
We've got African Americans in department head positions.
Department head position?
That's correct.
What department?
We've got a captain in the fire department that's a black.
Mayor Rufus Davis says a black isn't enough. He tells me his city is more than 50% African American, but there's little opportunity for black people to have city jobs. The city manager has different data.
I said, I don't know the exact number of minorities that are represented in that 100. I was about to say, I think it's approximately 45 to 50.
Percent?
We do know the Camilla police force had no black officers.
We've sent black recruits to the post certification and they've not been able to pass. We've sent black recruits to the post certification and they've not been able to pass. We've sent black recruits to the post certification and they've not been able to pass.
Adams says one black person passed in just the last few weeks. Coincidentally, it's been about a month since Mayor Davis first brought attention to what he calls discriminatory patterns and practices throughout Camilla. His clearest example was the Oakview Cemetery.
My city is 70% African American. However, blacks cannot be buried next to whites in the city-owned cemetery.
A fence separating blacks and whites was taken down last week. The next step is getting a hold of city records to investigate and destroy the so-called invisible barriers throughout this southern Georgia city.
This is about the future generations more than anything.
The city manager says the city does not discriminate based on race. Other residents argue the cemetery was never segregated. They say one side was free of charge and the other simply wasn't. One side was free of charge and the other simply wasn't. One side was free of charge and the other simply wasn't. Of course, the mayor can investigate all of that once he gets a hold of all of those records. And if he does not get the information he needs, he says the city of Camilla can surely expect a lawsuit. In Camilla, Brittany Miller, CBS 46 News.
controversial bill is currently working its way through City Hall, designed to regulate stop-and-go liquor stores. Now, one part of the bill would force business owners to take down bulletproof glass inside their stores. Here's the question. At what cost to their safety? Fox 29's Jeff Cole's live at City Hall. Jeff.
Lucy, that is exactly the question. In a city that struggles with gun violence, there is a bill going through City Hall here that would take down some of the plexiglass. Now, merchants say this is a question of safety. A city councilwoman says no, it's dignity for her constituents. Broad Deli sits on the corner of the 2200 block of North Broad. Outside, there are high-intensity lights to illuminate loiterers. Inside, a wall of bulletproof glass separates customer from workers.
The most important thing is our safety and the public safety.
Rich Kim's family has run the deli, which sells soda, snacks, meals, and beer by the can for 20 years. He says the glass went up after a shooting and claims it saved his mother-in-law from a knife attack. Now, he may be forced to take some of the barrier down.
If the glass comes down, the crime rate will rise, and there will be a lot of dead bodies.
A bill moving through City Council reads, no establishment shall erect or maintain a physical barrier. It's called the Stop and Go bill and is being offered by City Councilwoman Cindy Bass.
But right now, I think the plexiglass has to come down.
She wants to put some controls on these small stores that she says sell booze, very little food, and other source of trouble in her district.
We want to make sure that, that there isn't this sort of indignity, in my opinion, to serving food through a plexiglass only in certain neighborhoods.
Rich Kim resents the charge. Stores like this attract loiterers and argues calls to police are often met with a slow response. Mike Chow runs a nonprofit supporting Korean-owned businesses. He plans on raising $100,000 to fight the measure.
I do think it's a bad bill that will endanger Korean Americans.
Bass says she's battling for her constituents. Kim argues, as a Korean American, he's being targeted. This bill targets Korean Americans.
Absolutely.
That's nasty.
Targets Korean Americans. We own these shops.
That's nasty.
And our lives will be put in danger by this.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I can tell you I find that offensive.
She says she finds it offensive that anybody would claim that she's targeting Korean Americans. Bass says that more cameras, a security guard, a security wand may answer some of the security issues. Mr. Kim says have the police guarantee his safety. He'll take the plexiglass down tomorrow. Live at City Hall, we'll have more at 6. I'm Jeff Cole.
The University of Alabama student seen in these Instagram videos using racist language is no longer enrolled at the school. The Instagram videos show Harley Barber using the N-word multiple times. Also references the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, saying she's from New Jersey, and makes reference to people reporting her to her sorority because of her comments. The sorority dismissed her, we should also add. University President Stuart Bell in a new statement calling the videos, quote, highly offensive and deeply hurtful, and says we hold our students to much higher standards and apologize to everyone who's seen the videos and been hurt by this hateful, ignorant, and offensive behavior. This is not who we are. It is unacceptable and unwelcome here at UL.
On President Trump, and you have no argument. The fact that he's going to get a deal done on DACA, that he's trying to get a comprehensive immigration reform done in a way that Obama couldn't, in a way that Bush couldn't. But you know what? President Trump is going to get that done. But the political left is going to immediately to the personal.
Hang on, one second, because we just heard from the president. Anna, wait. We just heard from the president.
This isn't about you and me. You can't even sit there and watch the president's own words without calling John Berman and New Day ridiculous, because you don't even have the face to be able to look at his own words. This program isn't putting words in his mouth. They're quoting him. That's him on video.
Anna,
those are
you're
his
melting.
words. He has been a racist his entire life. Oh, no, I'm not melting. I'm not a snowflake. You know
guys,
what I am?
it's not even springtime.
Hang on, Jason, Anna, hang on one second. Hang on one second, Anna. The president just...
Jason, I don't say that you look like a buffoon trying to make sense of what this man is saying. This is about Donald Trump being a racist. I don't care what you say.
You should give him some credit.
Jason, Anna, hang on. The president just put out a statement. The president just put out...
Hey folks, Matt McGorry here, MLK Day 2018. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I'm here because I'd like to share a message of a lesson that I learned a few years ago. Actually, it happened a few years ago and didn't learn until a bit later, on MLK Day. I shared the quote, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. I shared that quote on social media, and I saw a comment in my comment section from a woman of color who said, why do white people always post this quote on MLK Day? I remember feeling very defensive, thinking, how could this person disagree with the fact that I'm posting a quote about love from MLK? The thing that I didn't realize was white people often only post quotes like this that are apolitical, and then we refuse to engage in a critical way with white supremacy. So the lessons that I learned about Martin Luther King throughout my life, at that point in my life, about 3 years ago, when I would have considered myself a sort of a liberal but not necessarily a political person, was that Martin Luther King just talked about, you know, kids holding hands and did these things that dismantled certain systems that were in place then, but I was not aware of how they were in place now, right? The problem with this apoliticized legacy is then it lets us off the hook, right? Because when I can post about love, driving out the love, and say, oh, I do feel love, I have a lot of love, and I hate racism, I hate the Ku Klux Klan, then it actually lets me off the hook from thinking deeper and more critically about the ways that I can work to end white supremacy in my own life, in myself, between my friends and my family, including liberal folks, in the institutions that I live in, even when you live in fairly progressive cities like Los Angeles or New York. Los Angeles, that has the most murderous police department in the country and is now expanding a $3.5 billion jail plan instead of giving this money to communities. So there's white supremacy everywhere, right? And it's well worth dismantling and investigating everywhere. I'd like to share with you another quote that most white people have not critically engaged with, but is one of Martin Luther King's as well. He said that whites, it must be frankly said, are not putting in a similar mass effort to re-educate themselves out of their racial ignorance. It is an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have so little to learn. So what I'm really asking for us to do today is to think about his actual legacy, right? Not as a sort of depoliticized Easter Bunny figure who just talked about black and white kids holding hands and that was it, but the radical revolutionary freedom fighter who made people uncomfortable, who is on the FBI's most wanted list for most dangerous man in America, and to really engage with that and think about that, what that looks like for today. Because for me, if I want to honor his legacy, as I have worked to do in the last few years, I really need to constantly be educating myself, to educate myself on what I can do to be a better ally, to amplify the voice of people of color, to investigate how white supremacy shows up in my own life, among my friends and my family, and to really actually be active, right? To get out in the streets in a way that if you read Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, you will see very clearly outlined that this was not a guy who was afraid of tension. And in fact, he said that we needed tension, right? So I'm engaging in all these white folks out here, all of you at home, to really think about what it means to engage in that discomfort and that tension of going to the next level of really facing white supremacy.
Why is he so stupid? Why is he so stupid?
I ask myself that every day.
They were located near rivers and coasts. That made them very vulnerable then to the Europeans because they would have easy access to those areas. So many of the West Africans, given the proximity to the sedentary lifestyle, were vulnerable to capture and enslave them and take them across or go to the New World where they were slaves.
Sorry, I just have one question. How many of these, slaves that were brought over were already slaves in Africa?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer.
And as always, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. Also follow us on the usual media for more and interesting information like this.
Fight their asses.